Okay, we are live. Hey, everybody, it's Uncle Grumpy. Welcome to Grumpy Tonight. And sorry we're getting a late start tonight. As usual, I'm having technical difficulties. We're lucky enough to be joined tonight by Lawrence Pasternak and Norma Sapp. They're not here in the studio. They're, as you can see, they're on the screen, though, so they're with us. We're going to go over some of what's coming out through or moving through the House this week, what's just flipped sides. For those that don't know it, everything that the House was working on last week moves to the Senate now. Everything the Senate was working on now moves to the House. So we're going to discuss those. Before we get started, I want to thank the sponsors, because if it wasn't for sponsors, I wouldn't be able to do this. So if you're interested in sponsoring, get a hold of me. I want to thank the Greens Bakery in Oklahoma City, Sweetleaf in Bartlesville, Canna Law Group in Oklahoma City, and Max's Garage here in downtown Muskogee. You can probably see their logos going across the screen there, as well as the new logo. And I want to thank the guy over at Hempnetics for working on that for me. Okay, let's get started. I've got notes. Thanks to Lawrence, we have notes. Norma, why don't you tell us, we're going to go over these notes and what they are, but what is the intention here? What are we going to do with this information we get?
Okay, I want everyone to get a piece of paper and a pencil and start taking notes. And I also want to say that we're not having a certain day or hour that we're going to rally at the Capitol this next week. I would like for everyone to come up if they can, or make arrangements to meet your lawmaker in your home district. Have coffee with him, this weekend if you can. And anyway, so the note taking is for as Dr. Pasternak goes over these bills. He's going to make a comment about each of them. I know there are people out there that are interested in certain things being changed that happened in Senate Bill 2612. And we can do that. We can fix that with the bills that are still alive. And so if you have a favorite issue out of there, make sure you make note of that and how you can help change it. And call or go visit your House members this coming week. And this week doesn't seem to be a good time to go, but you probably will catch them in their office more easily. And it's kind of slow around there, so you have time to talk to their legislative assistant if you call. So this is a good week for contacting. Next week is when we need people up there, because they're going to start going through the committee process with these bills. And then we'll have calls to action to contact committee members.
Okay.
So take it away, guys.
Okay, so Lawrence, let's take a look here. First, I want to ask Lawrence, how many of the books behind you did you write? I think we all want to know. How many of those did you write?
A couple.
A couple. Okay. All right. You're one of the few people I know that I can ask that question to, and they can say a couple, like it's just shrugs off their shoulder. A couple. Well, so why don't you fill us in here on some notes you came up with on what these bills are and what they're going to do, or what you think they may affect.
Well, there are 18 bills that have been approved by the Senate that are moving to the House, and some of them are fairly inconsequential. Some of them are mixed. Some of them are good. Some of them are bad. Some of them are a matter of debate. So I'm going to go through each of them in numerical order. The first one is Senate Bill 31. And that one is fairly innocuous. Basically, it just provides a conversion from ounces to grams. So I think that's not one that we need to worry about. The next one is Senate Bill 162. And that overall seems to be good. It basically removes the requirement for national board certification. That's been such a standing issue since the passage of 788. So that any MD or DO in good standing could recommend marijuana. One of the other things that it does is it clarifies what counts as a test batch and sets a limit, a maximum amount for a test batch to 10 pounds. I imagine that's an appropriate amount. So 162 sounds like a good one, something that we want to have move forward. Ideally, it'd be great if it moved forward with an emergency clause to add the MDs and the DOs all the sooner. Okay. Senate Bill 305. That one is more mixed. And one of the problems is that it adds in a little clause that is just not clear. It's the law currently says no school or landlord may refuse to enroll or lease to medical marijuana licensee, and it adds in the phrase as appropriate. So no school or landlord may refuse to enroll or lease to as appropriate medical marijuana licensee. And that vagueness of as appropriate seems problematic. The more negative aspect of it is that it goes back to the safety sensitive list and actually makes it more problematic than even what we saw in 2612. So the list for safety sensitive positions in 305 includes such things as food handlers and so on. So people who work at McDonald's and whatnot. So that's certainly a negative. And like I said, it expands the list of safety sensitive even beyond what we see in 2612. One positive in it is that it includes a clause that protects the custodial and the parental rights of medical marijuana licensees. So if there's any kind of DHS investigation, the parent or custodian who has a medical marijuana license should not be considered as a negative in their evaluation. So it's a mixed bill. Senate Bill 307, that one I think is probably one we would agree is problematic. That one sets in law that the 7% tax indicated in 788 shall be considered an excise tax, which that's the interpretation. Okay.
Let's just go over the highlights of what these are first, and we'll get back to the exact details and what they do, because we've got a pretty long list here to go through. Go ahead.
Keep going?
All right. Go ahead.
All right. So Senate Bill 612, it sets out as a crime and indicates penalties for somebody who has a counterfeit medical marijuana patient license or who uses another person's license. Senate Bill 754, it specifies where a percentage of the taxes collected are going to go, namely to the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. Senate Bill 755 concerns some rules having to do with advertising, and I guess we'll go back to this. Senate Bill 756 concerns rules having to do with labeling. Senate Bill 759 prohibits physicians from recommending at dispensaries and has a few other related issues. 760 introduces the option for a short-term 60-day patient license. 763 provides the physician the opportunity to restrict the amount of THC that the patient may purchase per month. 767 prohibits telemedicine. 768 allows the OMMA to gives them a 30-day window to review patient applications and a 90-day window to review commercial applications. Senate Bill 811, again, that vague as appropriate clause appears. And it also adds in what's called a weasel term, adding in the word potential to a certain phrase that basically gives more latitude to businesses to deny employment to patients. 7882 is the Tony Soprano Act. Senate Bill 8, that is the act that has to do with waste management. Senate Bill, oh, did we just lose Norma?
I think she's having some connection issues. Okay. Go ahead.
All right. Senate Bill 887 allows counties to increase the amount of marijuana that a patient can grow or purchase. Senate Bill 890 8 requires that at dispensaries, the patient license number must be re-entered into the system at the point of sale. And Senate Bill 1030 is really quite a large one, which includes rules that has to do with possession for license and non-license holders, rules having to do with locations where you can and cannot smoke or vape, adds in again that vague term as appropriate, and clarifies some tax issues, setting the 7% as an excise tax, but explicitly excluding marijuana from a state sales tax. That's a quick summary of the rest.
Okay. Apparently, I am missing one page. I didn't get. I've got down to 763, and then it jumps to my next page is 1030. So I'm missing the few of those that I did not like at all. That I heard, like this one to stop telemedicine. That's ridiculous. Telemedicine needs to be wide open. Okay. All right. So let's go back here to the beginning. You said you were mixed on 305.
Right.
What's your issues with that?
So that adding that phrase as appropriate. So no school or landlord may refuse to enroll or lease to as appropriate a medical marijuana licensee.
Okay. So we've just got a language issue on that one then, just that as appropriate.
The other, and the bigger issue, the bigger negative issue is the list of safety sensitive positions. It basically is the original list of safety sensitive positions that hit the working group a couple weeks ago that then got amended by the working group.
Okay. Okay. Well,
Can
I think
I interject?
Of course you can.
Can I interject on that one? So I talked to John Eccles this morning on that, and we're going to take that out of every bill that has it in it and replace it with the language that's in 788 if he has his way.
Okay. All right. So we got that one handled, or we're handling that one. Let's see.
Before you move on, let me just add something. So even if they were going to amend anything having to do with the safety sensitive positions, that, one option would be simply to go back to 788 and not provide for any exemptions for safety sensitive positions. Politically, I don't know whether that's going to fly or not, but a middle ground option that I've thought of is to include a clause that says, this is how I have it written out here, neither the employee's status as a medical marijuana patient licensee nor a positive test for THC metabolites shall be treated as dispositive of workplace impairment. So basically what that says is that if you're a licensee or if you test positive, that in no way correlates with you actually being impaired.
Okay.
That's not the problem with people that want that, though. They don't know how to figure out around the insurance demands.
Well, I think we already have language that says something to the effect of cannabis will not be compensated for through workman's comp. That is,
but they're used to a procedure that includes peeing in a bottle.
Right.
So the simple language in 788 says it all. Just treat it exactly like any other prescription.
Right.
Yeah.
And frankly, I think that is the better option, really. What I was thinking of as a middle ground, but I really do prefer that.
Okay. Let's see. Taxes. Well, we definitely have a problem with that, but I think we're going to have that one fixed. Don't you, Norma? Isn't that the plan?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So, and what we're probably going to end up with, unfortunately, is the same tax as everything else. Or no, actually 12, 13%, right? Or no, 11, 12%, depending on where you live.
Well,
7%.
No,
plus
if he changes that definition of that 7% away from being an excise tax, that could change everything.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. I think we'll be able to get that done, and that will make it where it'll be the regular tax. In fact, I think that is in. Is that the one in 1030? That's Paxton's bill. I remember the conversation.
It's in that one too.
Yeah, I remember a conversation I had with Paxton where I was complaining about the tax issue, and he was saying that at least the way he was doing it, they would only take the 7% for the state, So they wouldn't leave it as a sales or as an excise tax. They would call it the new sales tax for cannabis for the state, which would allow the cities and counties to also add their tax, which gives us, instead of a 4.5, which is what the state gets on, say, your gallon of milk, they get 4.5, or your aspirin. This has been compared to aspirin, okay? Because that's taxed too. In the conversation I had with him, he brought up aspirin. Aspirin would be taxed at 4.5 on the state level, and then your city and county, which makes it around almost 10%. This would make the state level 7%, and then the city and county would be on top of that. So I just want to point that
a little bit higher.
That we will pay higher taxes on cannabis than, well, any other state in the nation on medicine. I just want to acknowledge that. Go ahead, Lawrence. What was the next one, Lawrence? What were you saying?
612 will make it a crime to have a counterfeit patient license or to use somebody else's license.
Yeah, and that's really, I mean, that's no big deal in my mind. That's pretty standard. So let's see.
754.
754, just, they've already changed where this goes, haven't they, Norma? Weren't you saying that earlier?
Yeah. Yeah, that she wants to change it to, or the author wants to change it to go to mental health. And I think, I know who probably asked for that. Well, let's see if we can get this one killed. So everybody out there, write that one down, complain about that one.
754, you want to kill that one, okay?
Yeah.
All right, and then 55.
So 755 sets a number of advertising rules.
Okay, now, so I don't mean to interrupt you, but 755 and 756, let's address those two together because those both address advertising, and I think this is relevant. I think that we're getting a little bit carried away with the advertising, or with the no advertising and the packaging. I think this is, it's like they'll now allow us to have it as long as we keep it a secret and nobody can see it. But Lawrence, why don't you go ahead?
No billboards.
Yeah, no. Well, that's just a start. But Lawrence, go ahead.
So 55 is advertising and 56 is packaging. And so with 55, there can't be any advertising to suggest overconsumption. Like somebody just flopped over or whatever. I guess no advertising in a way that's would encourage the use for minors. That's understandable.
By the way, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm going to back up to what you just said about the not advertising to overuse.
Yeah.
I'm betting that will be something like using the phrase getting baked.
Right.
I'm betting something that implies that you're getting a little, you're doing more than just a little medication there. Anything like that is probably what they're going to be going after. I point that out because I know there's things like there was one company that was doing twice baked edibles. So
and
that
then
right there in the name is going to be a problem with this particular rule.
And there's a dispensary.
And it is subjective to whoever's viewing it, correct?
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Get Baked Oklahoma is the name of a dispensary here in Edmond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they better not put a sign out front. That would violate this.
Yes. So the additional prohibition is that no advertising could suggest any therapeutic value. And so that's the one that worries me, because while on the one hand, you can't make claims that have not been established by the FDA, the prohibition strikes me as too broad, because if I say it's medical marijuana, by the use of the word medical, I'm suggesting that there's therapeutic value to it. Right.
And look, we have a commercial that runs here in the Tulsa area it starts around 10 o'clock at night. And it's, I don't remember who does the commercial, but it says, can't sleep, having trouble with this, that, or the other. Look at Oklahoma's new medical marijuana law. That implies that if you're having trouble with sleeping or anxiety or the other things they mention, that it's going to help with that. That, if I'm understanding you, Lawrence, that would fall under a problem with this, right?
Oh, yeah, it definitely would. And I just do not know how businesses handle it outside of cannabis. Like you could have, for instance, you could have a video of somebody talking about the use of a certain product, but then the advertiser actually saying this product does X or does Y is making a claim as to its value.
Right.
So
Right.
I would imagine advertisers could find ways potentially to skirt through this, but still it strikes me as overly broad because while you want to have a law that says, you can't make a specific claim, you can't say, hey, come to us, we'll cure your cancer. To say that there can't be anything to indicate therapeutic value in general, that means how could you call it medical marijuana?
Right.
Right. So we would have a blank marijuana program. We'd have like marijuana crossed out.
And this is why I say these two run together, okay? Because this is where we move on to packaging. Because packaging is also advertising. Let's acknowledge that. Packaging is also advertising. Look, a few months ago, a friend that had a dispensary sold some pre-rolls, asked for my permission, sold them. They were called Grumpy Sticks. If I'm reading this correctly, that's advertising that would not be legal under this. And where I run into the real problem here, what's that?
Because it suggests overconsumption? I'm making a joke.
Because it's advertising.
But you can advertise.
Because kids want it. It says Grumpy. No, I'm kidding.
You're a cartoon character.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, there's some truth in that. I'm certainly a circus clown or rodeo clown.
So with 756, again, no packaging that's appealing to children. That's reasonable. That it can't resemble any other existing commercial products. You can't have something that looks like a Hershey bars or whatever with the same labeling. I think that's reasonable as well, right?
Right, but they can't appeal to children. That is such a broad statement.
I think there's case law there because, for instance, cigarettes and alcohol. Right. So similarly, you can't have Joe Camel or whatever. So I think that case law would probably help determine what would count as appealing to children.
So you're saying if you can't have Joe Camel, I'm asking, if you can't have Joe Camel, will you be able to have Uncle Grumpy?
Norma,
what do you think?
Got his like Saturday morning.
I kind of doubt it because you're not a child hero. So.
But Joe Camel wasn't a child hero.
Subjective. It's a subjective.
Joe Camel was not a childhood hero.
Yeah, this is the kind of thing that would still.
That's true.
It would end up being, basically guided by case law, I presume. That, if somebody has an advertisement that it's not clearly appealing to a child, but it has something that's sort of echoing, right, a childlike image, then that could be contested in court.
Well, then I would have to see some case law and see it in our favor before I'd even be remotely comfortable with this. But go ahead, let's.
So 756. Packaging. The good part of 756 is that it requires cannabinoid and terpene potency, which I strongly support labeling. Right. All the medically efficacious compounds in the product should be on the label. So I strongly support that. The one, in my opinion, the one most problematic part of 756 is that it requires packaging to be opaque. All right.
And this goes back to the no advertising.
Well, the opacity of it means that, cartridges, you can't see the color of the oil. Or edibles, you can't see what the edibles look like and so on. But some people would want their purchasing choices to be informed by the appearance of the products.
I know I do. Norma, don't you?
I say kill the bill.
Well,
you can get the terpene and other things in another bill.
Okay, well, that's why we have Norma here, Lawrence. So she can straighten us out on that. We'll just kill that bill and pull out the terpene part. Look, I do want to point out, Lawrence, for everybody, the terpene profile and the testing Lawrence is talking about here. This is one of the few parts that we were talking about when we actually were together writing that unity bill. And this is one of the few surviving parts. So it's important that this make it in there. And I stood behind it 100% then. I stand behind it now.
Yeah. Frankly, 756, if we'd have struck the prohibition on the packaging, the prohibition on non-opaque packaging, right? The rule that packaging has to be opaque. If we simply struck that line that the packaging has to be opaque, I think the rest of 756 is fine.
Well, help me out here. I first understood this and was okay with it and thought we can live with this when I thought it was exit bags we were talking about. When I thought it was just the bag they put everything in. It was only later that I started to realize that I think we're talking about every single bag on every shelf has to be opaque and blank, other than some testing information.
Well,
is that right?
This is what it says. I'm going up to the top. Develop minimum standards for packaging and labeling, contents to be affixed. Universal symbol indicating the product contains THC, and other cannabinoid potency and terpene potency. Statement indicating the product has been tested for contaminants. One or more product warnings to be determined by the department, and any other information the department deems necessary. Medical marijuana products shall, 1, be plain, whatever that means. 2, be opaque. 3, be designed to maximize the shelf life of the contained medical marijuana products. B, be tamper evident. And lastly, protect the product from contamination and shall not impart any toxins or deleterious substance to the product.
It sounds like this has to be the most ugly, just the most, I don't even know how to phrase this. Norma, what do you think? What do you think about this?
That's a lot of instructions for a little bit bag.
And that's every package, is it not? Is that not every single package that goes, that every pre-roll, every cartridge, every brownie, every pack of gummies, every eighth of flour, everything, right?
What does it mean for a package to be plain?
I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to go in and buy a package that I can't see what's inside or smell it. I just don't. And I don't like the letting me smell something in a jar on the counter and then handing me a bag from next to it. I mean, it's okay in some cases, and if you know the dispensary and you trust them, fine. But as a general rule, if I go in somewhere that I've never been before, I'm going to want to see what's inside that pack before I walk out the door.
In some cases, like for instance, if you're purchasing flour, they could still take it out of their dispensing jar and they could put it into a container and you could see that entire thing and then close up the container and hand it to you. The container has to be opaque, but you can still see what goes into the container.
Okay.
It has to be childproof too, isn't it? Did you say childproof?
Uh-huh.
And yeah, but all right, but you can't do that with, maybe you can do that with flour, but you can't do that with anything else because you just said all the stuff it has to do to handle shelf life. The package, the way it has to be packaged on the shelf, not packaged on the way out the door, packaged on the shelf. It has to be ugly and unattractive and unviewable on the shelf.
Well, let me look at that again. I didn't quite catch that.
That's what I'm getting out of it.
Kill the bill.
I say kill the bill. Kill the bill. Kill the bill. I'm with Norma on this one. All right, so 796
product packages. But so again, the package, it's what's transferred to, I think it could be interpreted as what's transferred to the licensee, right? So I think that's the point of it. It's what's transferred to the licensee.
So you're saying it's what, just the exit bag?
No, not the exit bag. But so let's say they have a jar behind the counter that is transparent, glass jar. And then they take out of that glass jar some flour and then they put it into a container. The container they put it into that they're going to hand to the patient has to be opaque. Okay,
that works for flour. How's that work for brownies? Because you can't repackage them.
Right.
How's that work for pre-rolls? Because now the dispensaries can't do pre-rolls. They have to take them they have to get them from the grower or a processor, or I guess from a processor already pre-rolled, because somehow that's I don't know why that is, that blows me away. But anyway, so they can't do pre-rolls. So how's that work?
Well, I think the problem is that people would like to see what they're buying, and
Yeah.
so brownies or gummies or
That doesn't work. Norma's got it. Kill the bill. That one has to die before it even gets there.
I say strike opacity, and then it's not too bad. But we'll move on.
Yeah, well, sometimes you're wrong, you crazy Canadian, you.
Okay. 759. Physicians cannot recommend, quote, at a location where medical marijuana is dispensed, end quote.
Now, this is the patient drive at the dispensary. We've had multiple conversations about this. Who wants to go first on this one?
Norma?
Okay. So this one is, we figured it out. I talked to John Eccles about it. I was complaining because so many people really enjoy going to a patient gathering at a dispensary and getting their card and getting it all put in. And, the dispensary likes hosting all these people and meeting all these people. It really is kind of like a really nice gathering to get to meet all these patients. And so I was very disappointed when it said they don't want doctors going into dispensaries to do that. That'll change everything. But there's another bill. It is the 767, which allows telemedicine. So John Eccles explained to me, we don't have to have the doctor leave their office. They can do it on a laptop or a pad or something, and we can still have patients come to the dispensaries and gather up there to meet the doctor on the pad or the computer. And then we can still help them process their information to the OMMA.
Okay, Lawrence?
I still think actual face-to-face interaction between the patient and the doctor is preferable. And I think that when you're looking at rural areas in particular, where access to a recommending physician is more difficult, where you're going to be able to have that event, having it at a local dispensary may be the only option in a very small town. There won't necessarily be, a convention center or some other kind of facility where it could be held. So I would want the possibility of patient drives at dispensaries to remain an option.
Okay. I'm kind of split on this one. Norma, you and I have done patient drives we went to one little town that didn't even have a stop sign. Remember that? Where was that? Down by Texas? Well, yeah. So I understand they wouldn't have anywhere else to have it. But even that one wasn't being held in there. If you remember, the doctor was actually in the house next door, and we were sending him over to the house next door. And you are right.
And sometimes that's an option.
Yeah, and you are right. These things are a community gathering. People do make friends there. They do connect with people that they've either only seen on Facebook or after that see on Facebook and become friends. So there is some of that. And the cannabis community is one that does like to gather and talk. We like to talk. So there is a lot of benefit to it. And while I think that the telemedicine is what they all need to get ready for because it's coming, there is going to be some places that don't have internet access well enough for telemedicine.
Good point.
So that is something that's a problem. So again, I'm torn on this one. I think telemedicine is coming. I think everybody needs to get ready for it. I think that is the way they're doing this in California already. In fact, I think you can get a card from California here now via telemedicine. So it's going to happen. They need to get ready for it. But you're right. There's some places where they won't be able to do this. They won't have the internet access. So that's a tough one. That really is. But the whole thing is optics. It's optics. Norma, you remember you and I. had some conversations at the Capitol, and then they said it was optics. It's the way this looks. Right. So I don't know if we're going to win on the optics on this one, which means if we don't, we need to be ready with the telemedicine.
Well, the people that are watching this right now are the ones that can choose to contact their House member about this issue. So we can all kind of vote that way.
There you go. There you go. That's how it works. We're just laying it out. We've all given our opinion. Mine's kind of up in the air. Yep. Yeah, I can go either way.
There's one other relevant provision in 759, which is that any physician who recommends marijuana cannot have an economic interest in any marijuana business. Now, the problem with that is that's too broad. So let's say he has an ETF, an exchange traded fund for marijuana. You know, these things are now being traded right through the market. So they can't have any economic interest at all whatsoever. They can't own shares of Tilray or some company out of state even. That strikes me as excessive. They can't put up funds for a transport company. It just seems going too far. I understand maybe not owning a dispensary, but this I think is too broad. And what it'll partially do is it'll mean the doctors will have to make a choice. You know, they'll say, "Oh, gee, I'm sorry, I own some shares in an ETF. I'm not allowed to recommend marijuana now." So it'll
take that little bit you like of it and add it to the telemedicine bill.
Now, Lawrence, if I'm not mistaken, didn't 2612 make it where publicly traded companies could not own part of a medical marijuana business in Oklahoma?
Yeah. However, what this says is that a physician cannot hold an economic interest in any medical marijuana business, and there's no specifying geographical location.
Okay. All right. Because I'm just saying, I was thinking maybe that takes care of your concern with the shares of whatever stocks they have.
Did a Republican really write this bill? Goodness gracious.
Norma, the Senate has managed to craft some pretty, well, you know, I know some of them watch here, so I don't want to get too bad
That's
here.
Very anti-liberty. It really is.
It really is. Yeah, their bills really have. It's like they sat down and decided, okay, how can we undo this? How can we take away the will of the people? And that had to be the goal, because the mountains they had to hurdle to justify some of this are huge, and the payoff at the end is so small that there's only one reason, and that was just reefer madness. It's how can we undo this?
Yeah.
Lawrence, go ahead. You want to discuss some more details on some we haven't got to yet?
Yeah, let's move on. I say kill 759 and personally, and let's move on. 760, that allows physicians to recommend a short-term 60-day license for patients. So, you know, if you go to your primary care doctor and your primary care doctor says, you know, look, we don't know if this is going to help you or not. Why don't we give it a try? That 60-day license might bring more doctors on board to recommend to patients. So that's the upside of it.
Okay.
And the downside is it costs them about $300 to get their card.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And let me also throw this in there. Okay. Not only does it cost them all that money to get their card, they have to pay, you know, I mean, some of them are a little less now, but about $300 by the time they're done to get their card. But unfortunately, the reality of this is that doctors will shorten the recommendation, which, by the way, what's it taking now? 3-4 weeks to get your card? Once you get your approval letter or your approval notice, what's the time up to now, Norma?
Yeah. Well, now it's a little bit longer than the 2 weeks. And up to
okay. So, all right. So if I get mine, my doctor decides it might help me tomorrow, but he's not sure. So he only wants to give me 60 days. So I go through all this, And in 2 or 3 weeks, I get my card, and then I've got maybe 4 or 5 weeks left. Or what? Does he write the recommendation for 60 days from when I get the card? And why would he do that other than the fact that he gets to charge me another $125 when I come back in 60 days and say, I still need this? This is insane. Yep. This one pisses me off. This one makes me outraged because the doctors are already making enough damn money on this program. And this just hands the doctors more money, and it really makes me outraged.
I just scratched it out.
Yep.
It's dead.
Sorry, that's my rant from the night. That one pisses me off more than most.
You know, what I would have liked to have seen would be, and in fact, this has been done in certain states, a physician's certificate. So there are other states, it's like a prescription form, right? So it's not a copyable thing. And the physician, just right in the office, could say, here's your 60-day license.
And then you can use it. If he could do that, then we could revisit this conversation.
That's the way to do it, because otherwise, one of the other bills we've not gotten to yet gives the OMMA a 30-day processing window. So imagine you go to your doctor, right? You say, you know, I have insomnia, migraines, whatever it is. The doctor says, I'd like you to try marijuana. And then you have to wait 30 days in order for you to be able to get your 60-day permission. It becomes unfeasible. So I like the idea of a 60-day option, but why don't we expedite it by simply creating a non-duplicable type of certificate that the doctor could just hand you, like from his prescription pad?
Well, again, if we had anything remotely like that, we could revisit this. But without that, I see this as nothing more than a way for the doctors to make more money. And I think the doctors are already making enough.
Yeah.
We can do that next week, huh?
Good intentions, bad execution, I think, with this one.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. 763 allows physicians to set a maximum monthly THC amount.
Yeah, I think we can make this a little shorter by just saying that one's not going anywhere. Kill the bill, move on. Not going to happen. We have home grow. You can never do that.
How are they going to implement it, right? How are they going to implement it?
As long as there's that's all about having a tracking program where the state keeps track of every purchase you make in every dispensary. The minute you make a purchase, the state wants to know it, and they will have those records forever. And that's probably how it's going to be. And that would be the only way to do something like this. But again, we have home grow. They're not coming after home grow. As long as they don't, they can't enforce this.
Yep. Right. Okay. So 767 is the prohibition on telemedicine.
Okay. That I see that as nothing more than a couple of particular people getting mad and going down to the Capitol and throwing a fit because they're afraid this is going to affect their business.
I spoke to the senator about it today, and he agrees. You can't specialize this off, like right now, telemedicine is starting to take off in the state. And so you can't separate except for this one drug.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. As long as,
it won't work.
Yeah. As long as telemedicine is available for other stuff, there's no way they can undo this. And again, I think it's just special interest that wants that. But go ahead.
All right.
More restriction of liberty.
Yeah.
768. This one gives the OMMA 30 days to review patient applications and 90 days to review business applications, in both cases up through April 2021. Then it rolls back to 14 days. So basically,
they want a year to get caught up.
Yeah. Well, basically their situation is that they have too many applicants and too few employees.
Well, they have millions of dollars. They can hire some more people, kill the bill, move on.
811. That vague phrase, as appropriate, pops up again, namely that no school or landlord may refuse to enroll or lease to, as appropriate, medical marijuana licensee.
Yeah. That's a dog whistle if I ever heard it. But go ahead.
It also revises the language having to do with federal funds. So a business that could lose federal funding by allowing a medical marijuana patient to be employed there, as per 788, right, to deny employment. But what this one says is it would cause an employer the potential to imminently lose. So it's not that they will. It's not like you're basically saying, look, my agreement with the government is that I can't employ anybody who has a medical marijuana license. Once I do it, I'm voiding my contract. This basically says instead the potential, right, to lose that contract. And so that's just too open.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Kill the bill.
Kill the bill. Next.
Yeah, it has one other clause that's not a big deal. Basically, it says that research conducted on medical marijuana need not be subject to Department of Health oversight. But anyhow, I'll move on. 882 is the Tony Soprano Act, which basically allows all the waste from all the dispensaries to be gathered up into specific businesses for them to diverge.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right.
It's the way in which they could monetize, right, waste.
Whatever you do, Lawrence, don't beat around the bush. Tell us what you really think of that one. What do you? I know, Norma, you've done some serious legwork chasing this bill around. What do you have to say about it before we move on?
Well, if it stays like Representative Fatgatter had suggested, if he can get that change to define. So the only thing that'd be left is the dirt and the fluids or water that is used. So that we can keep our stems and compost them. We can keep our leaves and freeze them for, smoothies. And what was the other? He was going to redefine
seeds, stems, and leaves.
Yeah. So we won't have to dispose of all those. So what's left is just, I guess, the dirt and the water.
So
we better keep an eye on that one.
Yeah, we better keep a close eye on that one. I'm not real. And then there's 10 licenses for the state. That's the Soprano part of it there. That's definitely the Soprano part. Who do you think's getting those jobs? Go ahead.
Well, I don't know. Whoever can afford all that drive, with the licensing.
I'm betting. Look, I'm betting it's whoever went to the lawmakers and said, "I want you to carve out a piece of this industry for me." I'm betting that's who gets some of those contracts. Maybe all of them. But go ahead.
No. That's, that could happen.
Go ahead, Lawrence.
Okay. 887. 887, I think we would agree, would be a good one. It gives the counties the opportunity to allow patients in that county to increase the amount of marijuana they may possess or grow.
Right, but it also allows to charge a fee, and this is the part I love. Norma, tell us what the fee is and where the fee is going to go.
Oh, I don't know. Tell me.
No, you told me, remember? The $250 fee that goes to the Policemen's Society retirement fund or something?
No, that's a different bill. It's over in the Senate.
Is that a different one? I'm sorry.
That's 2612, House Bill 2612.
Okay.
That one's at a fine the same all over the state, a $400 ticket, and you go down the road if you don't have your card.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And that one,
that one goes
to police retirement.
Right. Yeah. So how many of those do you think they're going to start dealing out? How much money they need? Because that's how many they're going to start dealing out. But anyway, I don't want to we're going to come back to that one on another show because that's a whole show. But Lawrence, get back to what you were saying. We've already been going almost an hour.
887 doesn't specify a specific dollar amount. It's for the counties to determine. So they could charge you $1, they could charge you $1 million.
Okay. Really? It doesn't? I thought there was a $250 limit. Norma, is that not in another bill?
No, there is no limit. I think there is a county that is doing it and offered it for $250 permit.
Okay, but this is only allows them. Lawrence, tell me, is this worded right? Where it only allows them to charge this extra fee if they're allowing you to grow more than what's in 788?
Yeah. So what it says is A county is hereby authorized to establish, assess, and collect fees for medical marijuana licensees or caregivers who, upon request and approval by the county where the person currently resides, exceed the maximum possession limits established in subsection A of this section. The authority granted by a county to a medical marijuana licensee or caregiver to exceed maximum potential limits shall apply only within the borders of the county.
Okay, so we're okay with that. All right.
Okay. Senate Bill 898. Patient licenses must be re-entered at point of sale. So you walk into a dispensary, you know, maybe there's somebody you first see, you hand them your card, they confirm its validity, you then go to your bud tender, you talk about what you want, your bud tender then packages it, and before you make your purchase, you have to provide your card again for them to once again re-enter it.
So that they can tag your sales to your card so they can keep track of exactly what you purchase.
I don't know. I have not been to very many dispensaries, so how do they usually do it?
Well, some do it like that, and that's what they're doing. They're keeping track of what you purchase. So, do you want to keep track of what you purchase? Do you not? Do you want the state to be able to keep track of what you purchase? Do you not? I'm okay with
I
the
really
stores.
don't, but it's in 2612 too.
I'm okay with the stores keeping track for 90 days because their reasoning was, well, what if you come in and say, I got something last week and it worked, and I don't know what it was, I don't have the package, whatever. Well, we can look that up. That's great. But if you don't go in there, but every more than, if it's more than 90 days between your visits, whatever you had, there isn't around anyway. So, pick something new. I mean, whatever blue dream you had is a different blue dream 90 days later. Rarely is it going to be so much that they're going to have that much for that long. There's too much turnover.
I think, honestly, what the issue is let's say the store is busy, or let's say somebody's not paying attention. Let's say that it's set up so that when you walk in, you have to show your card to somebody before you go into a more controlled area. But on that particular day, the person's not paying attention, or it's really busy, and somebody gets into that controlled area who doesn't have a license. And by virtue of being in that controlled area, the bud tenders assume that they're licensed and sell to them. I think the reason why they want to re-enter the license at the point of sale is that scenario.
I think
it's not a bad bill.
I think that is a good enough excuse to use that information to track every purchase you ever make. I mean, what you're saying makes sense. It's certainly a reason enough to justify tracking my sales or my purchases for the next 10 years, is it not? And in 2612, what did it give it, Norma? Wasn't it 7 years the dispensaries are going to have to keep the track of your purchases? The state, it doesn't even say.
Not the dispensary.
I thought that's how long it was in there, and it doesn't say how long the state will do it. They'll just keep track forever.
2612 does the same thing as this bill. It limits it to 60 days for the dispensary.
All right. Well, go ahead.
I'm okay with that. I think that it might cause some headaches for dispensaries that have just, will purchase some additional technology. Well, they have to make sure that, the bud tenders now have additional technology in hand for them to confirm this. It's going to slow down all the purchases. So, it's a bit of a nuisance.
Let me ask you this. Is there a law that says that somebody who doesn't have a card cannot go in a dispensary?
Nope.
Okay, then they need to just stop checking cards on the way in the door and get the card at point of purchase.
Yeah, that's I think a reasonable way of approaching it.
If it's slowing them down, that's all they need to do.
Right. Yep.
So, all right, go ahead. Next one. What do we got? We're coming up on almost an hour already.
And you've got 7 more minutes for an hour.
Now, the last one is 1030, and there's just a lot of issues in that one. One of them is that it clarifies one of the ambiguities in 788, that is, those who are not in possession of a license may, if they have 1.5 ounces or less, are subject to a misdemeanor and a fine of no more than $400. So that's what 788 says. And so the ambiguity is, if they're not in possession of a license, what does that mean? Are they not holders of a license, or are they license holders and simply don't have it on their person? And so one of the things that 1030 does is it clarifies that. And what it basically says is that if you're not licensed and you're possessing 1.5 ounces or less, you're subject to that $400 fine and a misdemeanor. So it clarifies that. What it also does is it says that you'll receive a written citation and be released on your own recognizance. So rather than being arrested and booked, a person who is caught with some 1.5 ounces or less, who's not a license holder, they'll be cited and released.
Okay, so that's a good part of this. This is Paxton's bill, right?
Yep.
Yeah, this is loaded with a couple of good things.
It says the same thing as that House Bill 2614. It says the same thing.
Yeah.
It's a $400 ticket.
Yeah.
Unless that one calls it a misdemeanor. Does 1030 call it a misdemeanor?
We don't even want it to be a misdemeanor, do we?
Yeah, we just wanted to pay.
No, in 2614, it's not. It's a ticket. So that'll have to be changed.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Lawrence.
And so if you are a license holder and you just forgot your card, same thing. You're cited and released, and then you could bring your card in and the charges will be dropped.
Okay.
Now, in order...
So 1030 also has jobs in it, right? The safety-sensitive jobs?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'd have to double check it, but I don't have that on my notes. Another
taxes
thing,
in it, maybe.
Yeah.
Yes, it does have the taxes.
So in addition, it will require, though, that the court could gain access to the OMMA patient registry to verify the license that you bring in. So...
Okay, the devil's in the details there. It depends on how they're verifying that information.
Right. So if you bring in your card, right, and then it verifies the validity of the card by virtue of the 24-digit number, and that's it, that's fine.
Right.
Okay. It also says that the OMMA shall retain all information on the applications.
Yeah, I don't like that either, because they're only supposed to be keeping... Wasn't it in 788 that they would just keep the basics? Norma?
What are you talking about? And what does that bill say exactly? What they're going to keep?
Everything on the paper.
All information.
Everything.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And so it was in 788 that it only kept certain things. Correct.
Okay. All right. All right. So what's next? What's your next note there, Lawrence?
Okay.
That's it, isn't it?
No,
there's a bunch more.
No, 1030 is loaded with stuff. 1030 is the biggest one.
Oh.
Localities may restrict smoking or vaping in public. So, a town could set a law that says, no public smoking, no public vaping, parks and so forth.
Okay, but can't they do that now with smoking cigarettes?
I don't know.
They do.
So
go to a park.
As long as vaping is, or as long as this is no different than smoking nicotine, we can't really complain.
The next thing changes that, though.
Okay.
No smoking or vaping cannabis within 50 feet of a street, alley, or sidewalk.
Yeah, that's just the stupidest thing he could have wrote on there, and it makes no sense. I don't know why that's even on there. That just really, I mean, they just lowered it from 25 feet to 15 feet in 2216, isn't it, or 2218, whichever that smoking bill was.
It was
2288. That's it, which makes vaping the same as smoking. There was also the same as smoking nicotine. There was also an amendment in there, moving it from 25 feet from an entrance or an outside restaurant area to 15 feet. But then this guy wants to throw in here that he wants to push vaping of cannabis to 50 feet from a public street, alley, or sidewalk. So you better be in your house.
Well, what if your house is less than 50 feet from a street?
Then you're screwed.
Yeah.
Don't look out your window while you're vaping. You will get in trouble.
That's right. Doesn't.
Can we agree that we kill this bill?
Yeah, but it's a bigger elephant than just to say kill the bill.
Let's keep going.
Yeah, keep going.
So again, that vague as appropriate pops up. And then again, the potential to imminently lose money. So rather than simply that they can't hire somebody if they're going to lose money, if there's a potential to lose money, that is federal funds. So, and then now the last thing is the taxes. So it defines a 7% as an excise tax, but then it exempts cannabis from sales tax, from state sales tax, that is, but allows localities to establish a tax on it.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier. That is the only part of this bill that I've heard so far that should be saved. And not that I think we should have to pay those taxes, but if the choice is, and it seems to be, the choice seems to be either pay 11 to 12% or keep paying what we're paying at 16 to 18%. Those seems to be our choices. Am I right? Norma, do you see a choice?
Yep.
The other thing, though, at the beginning is in its clarifying the issue having to do with the $400 fine. That's a positive as well.
Okay.
So, right. This is just one of those things where there's good and bad. If there's a way of separating all these issues out, that would be.
There is. Well, we've got notes now. We can pull those good parts out and see what we can do with those. So maybe we can get them in some.
I still haven't heard one about caregiver.
It's not among them. There is no.
I got notes earlier about that. Okay, Lawrence, you and I wrote caregiver language months ago and revised it recently and got it to Representative Fricks, who's going to be running that as an amendment, I think, to something, or I think it may even be getting put in a bill that gets the language stripped. Okay. So we may use the title of something that's alive for that. But I did get a message from our fearless floor leader, as I like to say, about the caregiver part this morning, reassuring me that that's being addressed. So that's going to be addressed. Okay. The caregiver will.
Something I would like to tell everyone while we're here, John Eccles is working hard for us. He really is thinking about this. And today he went home early because he's got the flu. So everybody pray for him because we need him back at work.
Yeah, we do. I think if it wasn't for him, we'd still be fighting this out. At the beginning, I think he's helped with hemp from years ago and this now. I don't think Oklahoma would be where it's at without him. So, we definitely need his help. Okay, Lawrence, what else have we got? Was that the last bill?
That was the last one.
All right. Well, guys, we've been going for just over an hour. I think it's been an incredible show. I think we've hashed out a lot of stuff here. I know we could do this for hours and probably will. Once we get off here, we'll be doing it tonight on the phone. So I want to take a minute to thank both of you, and I want to tell everybody watching this what a big thank you we owe both of you guys. You both work without any praise at all the time on this, and nobody takes enough time to thank you both. So thank you both for helping. We will visit again in the next day or two, and we will get ready for next week. Thanks for coming, guys. Okay, guys, I'm going to wrap it up here. Again, I want to thank the sponsors, because if it wasn't for sponsors, we wouldn't have a show. Thank you, Norma. So thank you to the Greens Bakery in Oklahoma City, to Sweet Leaf in Bartlesville, to Canada Law Group in Oklahoma City, and to Max's Garage here in downtown Muskogee. This has been a great night. It's been a great show. Hopefully you guys learned a lot. Reach out to us. Get involved. We'll do whatever we can to help you. That's it for tonight, folks. Until next time, stay grumpy. See you on the road.